Hey, cinephiles, how's everybody doing tonight? I have got a big movie for you this time. So, we're doing one of the undisputed classics of 50s sci fi Forbidden Planet. And if you don't know this movie, I don't know how you're in this group, but if you don't know this movie, here's a little taste.
As you'll recollect from your briefing lectures, this is an Earth-type planet. 20 years ago, the spacecraft Bellerophon landed here with a prospecting party of scientists. Our mission is to search for survivors. That is all.
Times long past, this planet was the home of a mighty and noble race of beings, which called themselves the Krell. They were 1,000,000 years ahead of humankind. Oh, I dare say you're impatient to get back to base.
Yes, sir. The moment we've interviewed the other members of the Bellerophon party.
Others. But there are no others, Commander. One by one, in spite of every safeguard, my co-workers were torn literally limb from limb.
By what?
Stop! No further! I deny you! I give you up!
Man, I love this movie so much. And who better than to discuss this film with me than sci-fi sister OG herself, Fran Taylor.
What's up? What's happening?
What's
This good
happening?
stuff.
Happening, Fran. What's happening is Forbidden Planet, our
Yes,
favorite
it
movie.
is.
Girl, I tell
Yes,
you.
it is.
All right, this is like I said a minute ago, an iconic, absolutely the precursor of modern science fiction films. So if you haven't seen this film after this, please go and watch it. But friend, I just wanted to know, like you were 2, I was just born when this movie came out, so we didn't see it in the first run.
No.
So no, so
Mhm.
when did you finally see this movie? When did you see it?
Of course, I saw it on last century's TV. Probably on a late night show because I don't remember it being like it wasn't an annual thing or anything like that. But I remember seeing it and sitting there on TV, on the regular TV, regular square TV. And
Yeah.
it was just fascinating. It was just, all the colors but you know what? Wait a minute. We didn't have color TV when I was little. So, well, all the stuff that it was so busy and stuff, and the lady and the men and the monsters and blah, blah,
The
blah. I'm like,
monster.
"Ooh, this is great. This is great." And I just sat there and looked at it. And then we used to have this thing called a morning movie. And it wound up
Yes.
on that. It wound up on that. It's sort of like this movie that I really like to look at called Queen of Outer Space with
know it.
one of the Gabor sisters.
I know it.
and Eric Fleming.
Josh
Okay.
John, Eric Fleming.
Yes, yes, yes,
Got the
yes.
mask. Oh, come on, stop. All right, stop. You need
Okay,
to stop.
okay,
That's
okay.
why. See, I had to have Fran do this with me because she is the other sci-fi sister that really knows movies. And Fran and I go way back, and we talk about movies all the time. But
Mm-hmm.
now we picked this film because this is from classic Hollywood. And
Yeah.
I just want to give you a little bit about what was going on in 1956 because I was a baby and Fran was too.
Mm-hmm.
So there were five major studios back in the day, and it was MGM, our very own Paramount, RKO, 20th Century Fox, and Warner Brothers. They were the five big ones. Now, Warner Brothers is the one that brought us Them, which we did in this series a little while ago, and it also brought us The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. And Universal was giving us, Frankenstein, the Mummy, and all of that. MGM, right, Fran? This was called the Tiffany Studio. This was the
Yes. You know,
Prestige Studio. They didn't do sci-fi. They did Singing in the Rain, An American in Paris, Ben-Hur,
you
Quo
know,
Vadis.
yeah, all that. All that. They didn't do, they did their favorite movie from this, my favorite movie from this era was I'll Cry Tomorrow
Oh,
with
girl.
Susan Hay.
Okay.
And she was it was a melodrama, of course. And she played the
She was on
alcoholic actress,
she was on
Susan
death
Hay.
row.
Yes. No, that was Death Row, the one where she died was oh
Oh wait,
gosh.
no. Okay, yeah, yeah. I'll cry
Yeah.
tomorrow. Yeah, she plays the singer. She's the singer.
Yeah. She's a Broadway singer that was alcoholic and her mom was a bitch and her husband
Right.
died and yeah, that one. The other one, I Want to
All right.
Live
Yeah.
is the one where she was on death row when she, they
So
executed
so that's what they were doing at that time. And
her.
then, to bring it back to sci-fi, and then we have all these movies that are making all kinds of money and they're making these sci-fi pictures for low budget and they're bringing in all this cash. So Dory Sherry, who is now the head of MGM, is seeing this going on. And now the Tiffany Studio, that's the home of Clark Gable and Judy Garland and all the singing and dancing, they say, we're going to make a sci-fi film. And everybody's like, what? So Dory Sherry, not being Louis B. Mayer, who was, the financial guy. Dory Sherry was actually a screenwriter. He was a playwright. Like he had talent. He was running MGM. He was the head of the production studio, and then he was eventually the president. But he also knew how to make a good film. And so when he said he was going to greenlight a science fiction movie, he was waiting for his movie. And the big thing about this movie and what was coming out right now was, right, Fran, the color. And so we had War
Color.
of the Worlds,
Oh yes.
right?
One of my
Yeah,
favorites, the
War of the
original.
Worlds, Worlds
Love that
Collide.
movie. Love that movie. Um, and the special effects were pretty good. I mean, okay, maybe you saw a wire or two, but the special
Right.
effects, just like in this, I think the special effects in this movie is just it can almost stand up to CGI today. You know,
Yeah,
in this,
and
yes,
that's
the
funny you
special.
say that because we'll talk a little bit more about that because this is so basic. This is so crazy the way they did this that it's like it's funny that you put it up against CGI today. But
I mean, it's not, it's not
it's
as good as,
spectacular.
but it's spectacular. Like the scene with her and the tiger.
Yeah.
She wasn't near that tiger, believe you me. But you couldn't tell. You really couldn't tell if you look at it.
I said the same thing. She was not with that tiger, but they made it look like the tiger was in the same film with
They
her.
did. They did. I kept looking
Because
for
they
the
were not.
shadows and stuff, to see it. I'm like, she's nowhere near this tiger, but it looks like she's there, but you could tell,
You could tell it.
if you
They weren't
really
putting they
looked
weren't putting Anne Francis up there with no tiger.
please.
So so Dory Sherry is looking for the perfect script, and they have this story, and it's called Fatal Planet, and it takes place in 1972 on Mercury, and it's about a professor who he's out there on Mercury. I don't know how. He must be in some sort of a bubble on Mercury, but they got to send the astronauts out to get him because again he hasn't called back in 20 years. So that was the original story. Dory Sherry's like, I don't think so. So they bring in Cyril Hume, And Cyril makes some very pertinent changes to this script. First of all, he ditches the title and he calls it Forbidden Planet. We like it. Then he decides he's going to make this really an adaptation of The Tempest. So now we're getting Dory's attention. You know, we got a little Shakespeare going on here. We've got the shipwreck. We've got the magician, you know, on this desert island. We've got Miranda as in the daughter. We've got the beast as in Ariel. So we've got all of the Tempest going on here in Forbidden Planet. And then he does the incredible thing. He brings in Sigmund Freud.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when things got a little more adult than anybody else was ever thinking about. He brings in psychoanalysis to this script, which had never been done in a sci-fi movie before, and then places it outside of the galaxy on Altair 4. So, you know, every other sci-fi movie, the aliens were coming to Earth. They were going to destroy Earth. They were shooting stuff at Earth. Everything's taking place on Earth. Well, okay, maybe not Earth. You're going to maybe go to the moon. You might go to Mars, but you're staying in the solar system.
Our solar system, yes.
No, we're going to Altair. We're going to another stuff. We got a hyperdrive and we're out of here. I was like, oh, baby.
We're gone.
What's happening, friend? Huh? We're on hyperdrive. That got me excited right there, right then and there. I was like, we're going out of the galaxy? This is crazy.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, because these other, mostly they call them B movies, but some of them were C and D movies, okay?
Oh, yes.
The black and white ones that were sci-fi, they were laughable just about. But
I would put that one you already mentioned. It was Zsa Zsa as
Queen of Outer Space. When y'all get a chance and you're not doing anything, look at Queen of Outer Space. It is so ridiculous that it's like you can't stop looking at it.
It's a classic. It's a classic. You make a drinking game out of it. That's the only way you can
like, oh, okay. But
don't drink alcohol.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I wouldn't even think about that. But it's just that movie was so terrible. It was, I don't know if it's camp or what, but it was, and it was in color. It was in color.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful film. Zsa Zsa looked wonderful.
It was Venus, I think it was.
Yeah, they went to Venus. So we're on Altair 4. Okay, we're going back. I got to bring you back because you're going to stick there with Zsa Zsa. No, we're going back to Forbidden Planet. Focus, Fran.
Okay, focus.
Okay. So yeah, so Dory Sherry snaps this script up once he hears that we are going to go into psychoanalysis, because what has happened is that Alfred Hitchcock started this whole thing when he made the movie Spellbound, and he delves into the mind and what is going on. Makes a huge hit with this, and now it's a trend. We're bringing in all this psychoanalytical stuff into these other thrillers, melodramas, but for the first time, it's in a sci-fi movie. The monster is Morbius's id. I am like, oh, this is way beyond the 10-year-old. Okay, this is going for the folks. Yeah, so the script gets Dory Sherry to say yes. He greenlights this movie, gives them a $2 million budget, tells them to go ahead and make the movie. But he's making it a B movie. So he brings in his boy, Fred Wilcock, who he had worked with before. And Fred Wilcock is understandably a B-list director. The other movie that he made with Dory Sherry, which was his big movie, was Lassie Come Home. Okay? He's making this at MGM and made a lot of money, but it starred a dog and Roddy McDowell. This is not, Clark Gable and Loretta Young. So this is a B movie. This is a B director. Fred gets the assignment, and he's happy to have it. But the art direction group is the art direction group for every movie at MGM, and that means, Ben-Hur, everything, all the big spectacles. Everybody goes through the art direction, and there we find Cedric Gibbons and Arthur Lonergan. Cedric Gibbons did his entire career at MGM. He never worked at any other studio. This man has 39 Oscar nominations for art direction. He won 11 of them. And when they got this script, they went cray-cray.
Oh, yeah. You
Full
can tell.
Set. Yeah, go ahead. Full set.
Eastman Kodak for the color. CinemaScope all that just went there. They just said, okay, we're gonna just throw everything in this, right?
What else you got? What else you got? Well,
You
okay,
know,
yeah, we're gonna build. They had the set for the spaceship, which was the C-57D, which I have a hat that says C-57D because I love this movie that much. So when they built that set, they used an entire set, an entire sound stage at Culver City, and these sound stages usually held four of the sets that would be used in a movie. When we talked about Fantastic Voyage a while ago with Dr. Anne Marie Siegel, I mean, they did two different sets on one sound stage, and that was a huge movie. This one, when you look at that set with the spaceship and then that whole desert view behind, that is one sound stage, and that's all they had in there. I mean, Dory Sherry gets the word that they are breaking the budget, comes down there. I'm definitely, quoting, not quoting, I'm just making this up. Dory Sherry gets the word that they have broken the budget completely. He goes down there to see what the hell they're doing. He sees this big, huge freaking set, and he's like, what on earth? And then they start building a robot. They were going to build Robbie the robot. They're tinkering with the
Robbie.
robot. They got the spaceship, and he's like, what are you doing? So then Dory says, all right, if we're going to be in for a penny, we're in for a pound. And that's when he gives them CinemaScope and Eastman Kodak color. He said, well, if you're going to do all this, make it in color, make it widescreen, just go ahead.
And you know what? If you're a movie, you look at movies and stuff, CinemaScope was not meant to be played on regular last century TVs. It was not. It cuts off the two edges. So you don't get the whole panoramic view of the movie. This movie was filmed in CinemaScope, and it is perfect for the flat screens we have today because you see the entire movie. Nothing is cut off. Top, bottom, sides, nothing is cut off, and you see, and it's just amazing. And the color did not look artificial. The Eastman Kodak, the color, it was great. It was just like, oh my God. When I first saw it in color, I'm sitting there, of course, with my mouth open because I love this movie. And it's just, I think because of, I think because of the way it was filmed, the way it looked, even though it was in like the mid 50s, I was 2. I didn't see it when I was 2. We just said, but the CinemaScope part, that part enhanced this movie so much because you could see everything, just everything. Okay.
Yeah, it was incredible. And now CinemaScope made it big for the theater owners because whenever there was like something that came out new, like Todd AO or Panavision, or even more recently when everything went from to digital, and all the theater owners had to buy new equipment in order to show the film. When CinemaScope came out, they could use the existing film projectors that they had, and all they had to do was put the lens adapter on it, and you were good to go. But it couldn't use Technicolor, and that's why Eastman Color by Kodak came out. It worked perfectly with CinemaScope, and that's why we have this absolutely beautiful, as Fran's saying, widescreen, beautifully hued film that is still preserved today. Now they do have to go back and re-enhance the color on the film because one problem with Eastman color is that it fades quickly. But if you keep it up and you maintain it, it still looks great. And you're right, it looks great on a big widescreen TV. I did see this in a movie theater because we had a thing in Boston where in the summer they would bring the old movies back into like these old movie palaces. And I went to see it at the Music Hall in Boston and lost my mind. I mean, this movie is so good. Now, Eastman Kodak color is famous, and a few other movies have been made with this technique. Rebel Without a Cause. And if you remember, I don't know, maybe you don't, but I'll tell you, James Dean's red jacket was so famous in this Eastman color that kids ran out to buy that red jacket like they never saw red before. I love that. It was because of the color of the movie film. It was just now Oklahoma is filmed with the same technique. 2001, The Space Odyssey, and also Jurassic Park all use Eastman Kodak color. Eastman color by Kodak. Let me get it straight for you. Okay. So now I want to talk about one other thing that made this film iconic and I'm going to use that word, even though I hate it when most people use that word, but this time it's the right word, because of the music. And I'm going to
What
put
music?
it.
Serena, what music? Go ahead. Take it away. I
There
don't know
is
no music in
there
there, but
is no music.
let me bring myself in.
No, girlfriend, you are completely right. There is no music in
There
this
is
film.
no
There
music.
are electronic tonalities. This is the
Mm-hmm.
first film that uses all electronic music. And it was a film that had a score. Actually, they actually did a musical score using woodwinds and strings and percussion. But when they heard Bibi and Lewis, um, um, Britain's,
Rendition.
when they heard the electronic tones, they threw the whole musical score out. I
And that's
mean, this is the beginning. And now the thing that they're using, they are cybernetic circuits, and each one was custom to the sound that it had to make. And so Bibi is the music composer, and her husband Louis was a cybernetic engineer. They make this freaking contraption, which is an early Moog synthesizer, basically, and they make this crazy music. Now, it was so different and so wild that when the premiere of Forbidden Planet came out, and the scene where the spaceship is actually landing on Altair, and it is like full Dolby sound electronic tonality, the audience broke out into applause. They had never heard anything like this. It was just mind blowing. So now you've got the color, you've got the spaceship, you've got the sound, and people are like, the first 10 minutes, I don't know what the heck is going to happen next. This is incredible. So the music in this, listen again to the okay, the tonalities, because there is no music.
no music.
No music. And it gets to a point where the union got mad because, Fran, you did it first and said there is no music. And that's
Yes.
exactly what the union said. There is no music. Do not call it a score. You are not putting these people up there saying music by. You better change those titles. You better change them fast. You better call it something else. I don't care what you call it, but you better not call it music. And that's why we have the credits that we have. The lawyers got involved and they had to change it from music to electronic tonalities. So it also prevented them from being nominated in the Best Musical Score category because the Academy also said it wasn't music. So, Fran, I guess you're right.
But it set the mood, the electronic totalities or whatever they call them. It set the mood throughout the whole movie, in each segment, especially when the crazy segments came around.
Oh my God! Then the music got wild. The tonalities, the
Got
boom, 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 boom. Okay, I'm gonna imitate. I'm gonna imitate the monsters.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. And so, what's really crazy about this is that whenever you have now, I have to tell you, I went to Berkeley music school for one course in film music, and I actually wrote a paper about the tonalities of this film because it was so crazy. Um, they use the tonalities even for what is called the underscoring. And underscoring is unlike the score or the theme music of a film. It's that music that might be under the dialogue and you hear it in the background and it's trying to set the tone of the scene. And it's like it's trying to like set the mood. You hear it a lot in Star Trek. Like when the romantic part is coming because you hear the Star Trek romance music. That's the underscoring. You know the Klingon music. You know when it's going to be fight scene. You know what's coming. So they even did the tonalities for the underscoring. They did it for the sound effects. They did it for the what you call the diegetic music. Diegetic music. Now, diegetic music is music that is within the scene, coming from a source on the screen. And Walter Pigeon at one point goes to a little iPod. He goes to like a Krell iPod there, right? And he says, "Oh, this is Krell music." And
it plays a little piece, yeah.
He has this little. I was like, "Oh my God, I want a Krell iPod for real." That thing will hold how much music for 2,100 years? Oh,
You
good. I like
know,
that. Still
please.
works. And I don't know what kind of ears they had, but you can still hear that music. I was like, well,
Yeah.
whatever. Okay. Okay. All right. We're going to go. We're going to suspend disbelief and believe that that's really Krill music. But it was, again, the tonality. So, I just want you to go back and listen to this music. Tonalities.
Not me.
Let me
Okay.
stop.
All right.
Let me stop saying that. Okay. So, Fran, you mentioned the special effects.
I thought they were great. I thought they were great. They didn't, this was an A picture. Totally. Wasn't B, C. This was totally an all. It was just, the special effects were pretty good. Well, they were great, I thought. For 1956, for 1956, they were fantastic, So the special.
And one of the, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I go back to the tiger scene, you knew darn well that those, maybe, the little deer and all that stuff, they probably, but that tiger was not. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, all right, okay. But it was believable. So it worked.
It totally worked. And one of the reasons why the special effects were so great, they did have the in-house MGM people doing special effects, but they went out and asked Disney to come and help them. So just like they did in Fantastic Voyage when they went to Disney, which was like the, what's that film, Lighten Star Works, whatever, everybody's going to ask them to come and help them. But they went to Disney, which was the animators of the time, and they got Joshua Medor. Joshua Medor came over and volunteered to help them do the animation for the monster, the tiger, and there was a couple of other things that he also did the animation for. But most specifically, he did that invisible monster coming through the fence. And believe it or not, they didn't even use traditional celluloid animation to do that. It was some really custom process of just using his pencil sketches where he just sketched that monster, and then they put it up on the screen somehow so that when it came through that fence, all you saw was the outline of it, like it was lightning and like it was power, like it was, I mean, it was stupendous. It was absolutely amazing. It scared the bejesus out of me when I was a kid. Whoa.
Yeah, it was.
Now,
and this picture's rated G. This picture's rated G. I mean, you don't see the deaths. I mean, you know the deaths, but you don't actually see, because they don't show blood or anything like that. But this picture, I'm like, with all this crap going on, could have been, PG, I think, at least. But it was rated G, sure, even with all the violence that was in it.
It was all off screen. You heard the yell. You never saw anybody actually, except for poor, what's his name, Jerry. Well, Jerry, like a fool, went and running up there with the gun. I said, Jerry, what are you doing?
We knew he was gone. When they take off by themselves, that's it. He's gone. That's it.
You got Jerry, 4 batteries. You got 4 batteries, sending all kinds of stuff. You're gonna run up there with your little phaser rifle. Like, who do you think you are, Gary?
Next thing you know, he looking like the monster.
Oh man, I tell you, that was sad. That was sad. He got picked up and thrown. I was like, oh, you're
lost
gone.
The girl and died. Okay.
Yep.
He lost the girl and died.
Lost the girl and died. You knew he was a goner.
Yeah.
But this movie does have the great special effects, and it was nominated, but it lost. And so I had to go into the books and see what movie could have possibly beat Forbidden Planet in 1956. Fran, you have any idea what movie could have beat it?
1956?
Yes, ma'am. I know I'm putting you on the spot. This was not in our
notes. No, it wasn't in the notes. The only one I really, no, I don't. Let us know.
It was, of course, from Paramount Studios, The 10 Commandments and that parting of the Red Sea.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, that was one of their big events, their big special effects.
That was pretty neat.
Yeah. I was like, okay, all right. You know what? I'm gonna give it to you.
I thought but see, the 10 Commandments are one of my favorite movies too, but not for reasons people think it would be. So I'm not gonna go off on a tangent on that one either.
Wait, I want to hear. What was your reason for liking the Ten Commandments so much? I know.
Because it's so fucked up, and it's
Edward
such
G.
a
Robinson.
fucked up, campy thing without even realizing that Edward G. Robinson had a Brooklyn accent. Okay,
I knew
see,
it.
he had a Brooklyn accent. How you don't have a Brooklyn accent and you in Egypt? You know, all he needed was a cigar.
I did. I really. All he needed was a cigar. It would have been.
Was a cigar. This movie is, and I know it's a favorite of a lot of people, but it's another one that's a train wreck that I look at. I even bought the movie because I like it because it's so fucked up. It's just, you know, it's just an awful movie that doesn't know that it's awful. Okay, so if I'm stepping on toes, I don't mean to, but I see it through a different lens. And, you know,
Some people in the chat guessed the Ten Commandments. I'm seeing a couple of people that guessed it. All right, good.
Oh,
Good.
okay.
We got some film people in here. Okay, so like the last thing I want to talk about before we talk about the film a little bit more is the cast. So, like I said,
Yeah.
this movie was originally budgeted to be a B film. Like I said, it had a B director with Fred Wilcox, and then it had a B cast because Walter Pidgeon is the only bona fide star in this film
At that point. Mm-hmm.
at that point. Very true.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else in this movie is going to go on to be a TV star of
Mhm.
note.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person. I mean, it's crazy who's in this movie. The TV series that come out of this. Leslie Nielsen, of course, is going to go on to be a very big TV star in the 60s and 70s. And then he's going to get, you know, those crazy movies that he made,
Crazy.
Airplane and
Airplane and the
and he's
cop
a
movie.
whole new
Yeah.
a whole new life, you know, of film acting as a comedian, which is really crazy in his later life. So Leslie Nielsen, but he did make a TV series called Bracken's World, and I know that because I used to watch Bracken's World because it was all about Hollywood. Anne Francis, who's our girl, goes on to make the TV series. Let's say it together, Fran.
Honey
West. That was the show. That was the show.
That was it. That, you know, that was Honey West. She was a private eye and, you know, tall, statuesque, beautiful, blonde, you know, and I think she had, what kind of cat did she have? Then she had a pet, what was her pet?
She had a leopard or something. What did she have?
She had a cheetah, leopard, something like that. Yeah, it was
She had an ocelot. I don't know what it was, but she had this exotic animal. But now you just said it. She was tall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what you noticed it too about her in this film. What was the strange thing about her in this film, Fran?
She was barefooted. No heels. No heels. She was bad because, you know, back then the women couldn't be taller than the leading man or whatever, or couldn't even be the same height. So she was barefooted. Check it out. In the whole movie, she was barefooted. And all I could think of was, okay, barefooted and pregnant. But she wasn't pregnant. She was just barefooted. Okay. No shoes.
And they list her at 5'8", but I'm like, somebody's lying. She had to be taller than that because she was looking, you know, eye to nose to Leslie Nielsen, who is definitely 6 foot.
Yeah.
And Walter Pidgeon is 6'1", and she was looking at him too. And she had no shoes on when she was looking at him. She had to be like 5'10". She was absolutely statuesque.
Yeah, 5. Yeah, she was. Yeah. So when she put on shoes, I mean, you know, heels is back. She was at least 6 feet tall.
So then we have Earl Holliman, who goes on to Policewoman with Angie Dickinson. We have James Drury. I don't know if you noticed him, but James Drury is the guy that gets cussed out for letting the monster get past them. That's little James Drury, who will go on to be the Virginian. He is very young in this. And then Jack Kelly, a guy that gets scooped up by the monster and loses the girl and dies. Jack Kelly was in Maverick, and he played Brett Maverick's crazy cousin.
No. He played his brother.
Who we know from The Man and The Fall Guy.
Bart and Brett were brothers.
Were they brothers?
Yeah, they were brothers. All the others were cousins.
Beauregard,
yeah, they were cousins. But these two, and they shared the lead in that. One time it'd be Bart, then it'd be Brett.
Then it would be Brett.
Yeah.
Right. So go back and watch Maverick, and you will see Jack Kelly not get killed and get the girl sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So I want to talk a little bit more about the actual action that goes on in the film, because this film is really driven by a romantic triangle
Oh
and
my
it
God.
is the triangle of Morbius, Alta, and Commander Adams, because that's when the stuff goes wrong.
And
So,
right then and there,
mm-hmm,
id, id, id.
it, oh my goodness, this is, it's a ridiculous love story. And Commander Adam ain't got nothing on Captain Kirk. I mean, he is the prototype of Captain Kirk. He just lands on
Yeah,
that planet, and one day later, that girl is mad in love with him.
he in love. I'm in love. Do you love? I'm like, okay, Star Trek. You know, everybody, you fast, fast, fast love. Come
He
on,
was
Gene Roddenberry. Come on, Roddenberry. Come on, come on.
He gave his boy the side eye and said, like, get away from her. And the next thing you know, what did she say at one point? We're joined together, body and soul. I was like, Lord Jesus.
That's when the tiger. That's when the id. When the first id thing came in, when the tiger got his ass knocked off.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, that's when the id thing started right there. Mm-hmm.
So it's the first time we see Morbius. I love that scene. If you go back and watch it, the first time we see him, all we have heard of him is his voice. And Walter Pidgeon has that incredible voice. Of course, warning them off, don't land on the planet. You've only come here like, a year in flight, but he's telling you to go back home. He's like, no, we gotta land. We gotta come. We're coming to see what's going on here. And then he's in the doorway of the house and he's all in silhouette. You don't see his face at all. And I knew right away, oh, this is trouble. Then you see him and they show his face and he's dressed all in black.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just standing there like, nah, this is not gonna go well at all. And it's so funny because he has one wardrobe change. He has the black outfit on when he's telling them, like, hey, you need to go back and I don't want you here and go on back and everything's fine. I'm good. Then Alta comes out and now he's trying to act nice. And the next day they got him in the brown suit and he's trying to be like the host. He's serving him lunch. Come on back. Yeah, I'll tell you the Krell stuff. Everything's cool,
Gonna help him get off the planet with the
Yeah.
all
Be all right.
Helpful, all that. So,
Then he gets mad again and they put him back in black. As soon as Leslie Nielsen says, the then United Federation of Planets is taking over, or whatever it was called, but we know it was really a federation. It's taking over.
That. You knew
that. Morbius goes hog wild. I mean, so now we've got the different stages of the id coming into the encampment. And I mean,
those footprints.
I don't know what that thing was, but when the doctor made that mold, I was out of there. I was like, the tonalities.
What the hell? Okay. It's a big dude, too.
Yeah.
Huge.
And the doctor says, I don't care what planet this is on. This does not make any sense. I don't care what. It's a bird. It's a this. It's a that. It's on two legs. It's got four. But what's going on here? I don't understand.
Speaking of the doctor, did we notice that the commander went down with his first officer and the doctor?
I sure did. It was a standard landing party.
Yeah, what reminds you of? Okay, we won't say it. Okay,
it was the standard Star Trek landing party. It was Kirk, Spock, and McCoy stopping over to see what was going on. I mean, come on. Let's talk about it. Let's go there. Let's talk about Star Trek inspiration in this film because it is so rampant and thick. It's like
it is.
I'm gonna read you a quote. I'm gonna read you a quote that Gene Roddenberry actually had come out his mouth. It's the only direct quote about him and Forbidden Planet. He later there was other things said about it, but this is to quote the man himself. He says, "Definitely not. The only time I ever thought of Forbidden Planet specifically when I was laying Star Trek out was when I said to myself, there are some mistakes they made in the film that I don't want to repeat. Mm-hmm. You have a ship capable of interstellar travel and a cook with pots and pans. Hey, come on, it doesn't fit. But no, I can't remember a single time during the planning of Star Trek that I looked at another show and said, I will borrow this."
Okay. That's the story. He's sticking with it.
Yeah. That's the story, and he's sticking with it.
The landing party, first off, from the beginning, okay? Look at the doctor, the first officer, and this captain. They're
Well,
right
right there. As somebody is saying in the chat, even the registry, when he says the deceleration point is 1701. I said, what? The deceleration point is what? 1701. Okay. And then they go get into the deceleration chambers, which look just like a transporter pad. I'm like, mm-hmm.
there. Didn't it? I'm like, what the? Okay. All right, Gene. You
All
know,
right, Gene.
sci-fi sister said he said what he said. He sure did.
But his biographer, David Alexander, who was the biographer of Gene Roddenberry, said that there was a memo. Now, this is when you love a biographer. He goes and finds the memo. The memo was in the archives of UCLA. The memo was written to Herb Salow. Herb Salow is one of the producers of Star Trek. Right. The subject of the memo was Forbidden Planet, and it's from Gene Roddenberry to Herb. And he's saying to Herb, you might remember when we saw Forbidden Planet. I think it would be interesting for Pato Gutzman to take another hard look at the spaceship, its configuration, controls, instrumentations, etc., while we are sketching and planning our own. Would it be ethical to make stills from the appropriate frame? I have no intention of copying, but I think it would stimulate our own thinking.
Of course, stimulate, you know. Poke at it. Poke at it.
Okay, Gene. Okay. He said what he said. I love it. I love it. I love it when, David Alexander like pulled out the memo, like, excuse me. And as far as I'm concerned, there were even like breadcrumbs of episodes of Star Trek in Forbidden Planet.
All over the place.
Oh my God. I mean, I was getting
falling in love fast. The falling in love fast.
Of course.
Real fast. You haven't been there, 48 hours and y'all in love. Okay.
Yeah, definitely doing Kirk. I saw a bit of Return to Tomorrow and Sargon, that whole story of that race that had ascended to an incredible height, and then they were only the 3 spheres left, and he was searching the heavens for somebody, and then they borrowed Spock's body and his body, and that one. Yeah. And they had pretty much offed themselves when they had leveled up to this mind capability that they destroyed themselves. And I was like, ooh, that sounds like the Krell. And then when he put the educator on, and he said it augmented his intelligence, all I could think of was Spock's brain. I was like, brain, what is brain? I was like, there it is.
Brain, what is brain?
What is brain? I mean, really. And then the other time I got a Star Trek feeling was when, number one, when they get to the planet and there's a man and his daughter, and I thought of Talos 4. It was the forbidden place. You couldn't go to that planet. They're getting warned off. They go there. There's this underground, race that's there. And it's like these 2 survivors. And the beautiful daughter falls in love with the captain. I'm like, well, here we go. We're back at the cage of Talos. Okay, whatever. And then one more. The burial scene. The burial scene in the middle of all the monsters coming through the fence, and they go, hey, we got to bury this guy. I'm like, Galileo 7. I mean,
they go bury those people.
It was Star Trek all over the freaking place. I couldn't believe it. The uniform, the communicators.
When people got cussed out, when they had the intruder, when the man got cussed out and they had the intruder, and he said dismissed at the end, right? And I remember Janeway really explaining what dismiss mean to Neelix. She said, and she said dismissed, and he just like stood there and looked. She said that's Starfleet, but get out.
So I mean, Commander Adams like ran those guys up and down. Not you for dreaming. There's no more dreaming on this ship. He was not having it. But we know that Star Trek was definitely, this has the DNA of Forbidden Planet, but also Star Wars and a bunch of other films. Star Wars people, Ben Bart, who was called the father of modern sound design, he outright says that he saw Forbidden Planet when he was 10 years old, and it inspired him to become a sound designer. Not like I'm just going to borrow it for a movie. Like, no, I'm gonna mold my entire life off of this movie. And then he does make the interior of the Death Star, and he absolutely says he was channeling the Krell civilization when he did the Death Star and the sounds inside the Death Star. And it's like, if you look at that and look at the Death Star, you will definitely see that that's where he was going with that. And he just flat out says it. And then we have, C-3PO being very much like Ronnie the robot. And
Ronnie went on later on. Ronnie went on and applied to Lost in Space.
Yep.
And he got the job, but he just had to change some things about himself. Instead of walking, he rolled.
Now there is a man in that. That is a man in a suit.
No, it's a small person.
Yep. They had to do a little different, but yeah. They call Robbie the hardest working robot in Hollywood. He was in everything.
Robbie was all over the place. Robbie was all over the place. Now let's talk about this wardrobe. Okay. Now I know the pilot, the women had on slacks and everything, but when they had to redo it, they came back with miniskirts. Anne Francis had on a miniskirt before, because miniskirts didn't come in vogue until the 60s, guys.
Right.
60s. So she had on these, these short dresses and everything. I'm like, okay. Only thing she needed was some matching underbloomers.
Some shoes. She needed some boots or something. Give the girl a pair of shoes.
But that her clothes were her wardrobe. She was just, half
designed
naked.
by Helen Rhodes, a longtime MGM designer who made that beautiful, beautiful gold dress that Commander Adams claimed he didn't like. What's wrong with my dress? I designed it myself. It was beautiful.
It was pretty. It was, really was.
Yep. And as people are saying in the chat, that she had an outfit on that looked like Vina from
she did.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on in this one. And then there's a scene with the educator where Morbius makes a little like hologram of Alta, which looks very much like, Star Wars. Obi-Wan, you're my only hope. The little
and also along with that, remember the little thing of Yar?
Yes, again.
It looks, it's a hollow program.
And you saw it in Forbidden Planet first, let me tell you.
Forbidden Planet.
Yes. And then also another thing that we see in Star Trek, and then a lot of other things, but we definitely see it in Star Trek, is that Robbie the robot had a rule that he could not harm a rational human being, which we also see in Data.
He could not. But you know what? And this is kind of an offshoot. The funniest line in this movie was when she was looking for Robbie and she couldn't find Robbie.
Yeah.
And she said, where were you?
Oh my God.
She said, where were you? He said, I was giving myself an oil job.
I said, okay.
They snuck that in there.
They slipped it right in there.
Giving myself an oil job. I said, okay, Robbie.
What were you saying about that PG rating? What did you say?
That's what I'm saying. But see, they didn't rate any movies until 1972.
Yes.
That's when they came out with the rating. So, so I think this should have been a P. But that probably flew over people's heads about the oil job. He was giving himself an oil job. I said,
yeah, I caught it.
You didn't say that, Robbie. Yes,
it was right after, Leslie Nielsen was yelling and screaming at her and talking about, we've been in space for 378 days with 18 super specific men, and you better not be wearing no clothes like that. And next thing I know, Robbie's coming out. I said, okay, yeah.
Give himself an oil job.
So anyway, that is our take. This is definitely a film that has given DNAs to all of modern sci-fi. It is a great story standing alone. Even if you didn't know that it had Shakespeare in it and Sigmund Freud in it or anything like that, or what was going on, it definitely is a story that you could sit there and watch from beginning to end and never blink. It's just that wonderful. It is considered by the American Film Institute as one of the top 10 all-time science fiction films, and it is also considered to be one of the best scores of 100 years of film, music or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, any final words about Forbidden Planet?
No, I just think it's a great movie. What you said, I think it's a great movie, story wise, action wise, visually, all of it. It's just great, and you throwing the Id and you throwing the Tempest and all that stuff. It's like, okay, they did what they wanted to do. It's like a mashup of greatness, I think, as far as sci-fi goes.
Yeah. This was Dory Sherry's pretty much a swan song. The movie wasn't critically acclaimed. It was an absolute favorite of audiences, but because of that blowing of the budget, it didn't make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And Dory Shelley ended up paying the price for that. There was definitely some other stuff going on with him, some political stuff in MGM, but this was one of the final nails in the coffin when it
he
didn't.
Black? Was he blackballed?
Yeah, you got it. You know it. Yeah, he was all in that House Un-American Activities, and he had a lot of other stuff going on. And then this movie ends up not making the big bucks because of the budgeting and all that. And this was kind of the reason they gave for ousting him from MGM. But that not to be, he didn't care because this is going on to be one of the most classic movie, and it was done under his watch. So, and it became a classic while he was alive. He didn't have to, he saw it become the classic.
He did
out the box
for it to become, yeah.
Bobby is fully functional.
Yes, he is.
People in the chat are so wrong. You know that Robbie the Robot in today's dollars would have cost $1 million, and it is still to this day the most expensive single prop ever made for a film.
I believe it.
Robbie the Robot.
So good. That's good. They got their money's worth because he is fully functional.
All right. On that note, we're going to do we're going to go to Bacon's Law. We're going to go to 6 Degrees of Star Trek. And so, Yvette, take it away. All right. So you would think with all the people that are in this, and you've got Rojan in this movie, I'm sure you noticed him in this, I could get to Star Trek pretty easily. But like I always say, where would be the fun in that? So we have Forbidden Planet. And in the First Degree, we have Anne Francis, who we said played Honey West. And Anne Francis, in the prior year as a MGM contract player, got a chance to make an incredible film called, in the second position, Bad Day at Black Rock, 1955. Ooh, girl, right?
Yeah.
So, Bad Day at Black Rock stars Spencer Tracy, 2 Oscars, Walter Brennan, 3 Oscars, Dean Jagger, 1 Oscar, Lee Marvin will win an Oscar, Ernest Borgnine will win an Oscar that very year he made Bad Day at Black Rock, and Oscar nominee Robert Ryan. And our tall, beautiful blonde Honey West is going to stand toe-to-toe with 6 men with that kind of pedigree. Coming in with like her 3rd movie, because she had made Black Boy Jungle, and she is phenomenal in this movie. So, in the Second Degree is Bad Day at Black Rock. If you have not seen it, write it down. It's one to watch. Coming out of this film is, in the 3rd position, Lee Marvin. Now, Lee Marvin was always playing a bad guy. He is Liberty Valance, all right? The man that got shot. He is also the man that threw scalding hot coffee in Gloria Graham's face. I love you so much.
Gloria Graham's face.
Threw the coffee in her face in the movie The Big Heat, 1953. One of the best film noir. Glenn Ford, directed by Fritz Lang. It is one of the best film noirs you ever want to see. I mean, that coffee in her face was like, oh my God. So that's our boy Lee Marvin in the 3rd position. Okay. Lee Marvin then goes and makes another film in the 4th position called The Dirty Dozen. I I love this movie. It actually makes Lee Marvin a good guy. He's still a tough guy. He's still a mean guy, but he now becomes a leading man and he's on the good team. Now he's going to play like the detectives. He's going to play all these other roles that he didn't get a chance to do when he was making the 40s film noirs and he was throwing coffee in women's faces. So now the Dirty Dozen is in the 4th position. We're going to come from the Dirty Dozen and into the 5th position. We've got the one of the dozen that made it. Oops, spoiler. Yes, everybody in the Dirty Dozen dies except for one guy. And that one guy is Charles Bronson. Okay, Lee Marvin made it and Richard Jacob made it, but of the dozen criminals, only Charles Bronson made it back from that mission. And Charles Bronson is usually considered, like Lee Marvin, a bad guy, a tough guy, a rough guy. But I want you to check out one of the movies he made, and the movie is called, starring Spencer Tracy again, Pat and Mike.
Mike, oh.
Okay, and he plays a gangster in this that gets beat up by not Spencer Tracy, but Katharine Hepburn. And you will see Charles Bronson actually has a great sense of comedic timing because he is hilarious in this film. But it's so early in his career that he is credited as Charles Brzezinski. He hadn't even changed his name to Bronson yet. So check out Pat and Mike and look for Charles Bronson playing the really hysterical part of a gangster that gets his butt kicked by Katharine Hepburn. And so that brings us to the 6th position, the 6th degree of separation from Forbidden Planet. We've got Charles Bronson's beautiful and lovely wife, Jill Ireland, who is in the TOS episode This Side of Paradise, playing Mr. Spock's girlfriend, Leela Kalomi, Miss Kalomi. And so we get all the way to TOS because which other franchise would I go to, Fran, with you here?
I said TOS.
TOS, 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 TOS.
Now, I'm sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
Now, this is a degree of separation. As you all know, you may not know, I love Columbo. Guess who played a villain in Columbo and killed Anne Francis?
Killed Anne Francis in Columbo? I have no idea. That was not my show.
Leonard Nimoy.
Leonard Nimoy killed Anne Francis in Columbo?
He killed Anne Francis and OD'd another person. And the name of the episode is called A Stitch in Crime.
Oh my God. Leonard Nimoy was in a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So he killed Anne Francis. So
well, we've got okay, on killing Anne Francis, we've got to wrap it up here. And so, Fran, where can people reach you if they want to talk more to you about Anne Francis getting off and Leonard Nimoy and anybody else?
Where can they reach me?
Yes.
Fran T at sci-fi-sistas.com.
All right, everyone. And now, thanks for being a part of this amazing community. And if you're new, I want you to make sure you subscribe, like, and ring the bell so you don't miss any of our great guests in sci-fi or sci-fi movies. If you want your brand in front of a passionate, movie-savvy audience, sponsor CinneCine Go SyFy. Yeah, sponsor the SyFy Sistas too. But sponsor CinneCine Go SyFy, which is a unique chance to connect with loyal consumers who love sci-fi and insider insights from directors, screenwriters, and fans. So whether you're a small business or whether you're an individual, it's a great way to reach an engaged community. So click the link in the show description or visit us at sci-fi-sistas.com/sponsors. That's where you can learn more about how to sponsor our show. This show, right here, this one. And all the rest of them. So our next episode of CinneCine Go SyFy is going to be with Laurie Ulster, and it is the film Time After Time. And we're going to get into this, Jack the Ripper and H.G. Wells stuff because I got to ask my girl some questions about that movie. But until then, good night, everyone, and go back and watch Forbidden Planet.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.